So, Ro, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for making the trip to DC.
Absolutely, of course. This is our second interview together, first one in person.
Yes.
I do appreciate you taking the opportunity to come out here and to sit down with us and to kind of dive into the topics at hand.
I'm excited.
Very good. However, before we kind of go into the details, there are a few things that I wanted to cover, particularly the conference that was supposed to happen today.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry, you came all the way down Excella or regular train?
Well, actually, we drove.
All right, drove. Okay.
Yeah, I like the trip. It's not that.
Yeah, about 6 hours, 5-6 hours.
Three and a half.
Yeah.
So,
3.5 hours?
yeah, it's a straight line from New York. Straight line. So I had fun on the trip. You know, stopped at some Cracker Barrel here and there, and it was fun. Good little road trip with the wife. So just speak a little bit more to the conference today that was canceled, and in particularly, why was it canceled?
Well, we were going to have the survivors again come here. I mean, they were so powerful last time that they came, asking for the release of the Epstein files.
Right.
These are people who were raped at the age of 13, 14. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Epstein then asked them to recruit other junior high and high school friends of theirs to come and get abused and raped. Awful. And they don't have a memory, some of them, of the abuse they faced. They want these files released so they can understand what happened to them. And they want these files released so that the people who covered up for Jeffrey Epstein's crimes are held accountable. So that the people who Jeffrey Epstein farmed these girls to are held accountable.
Right.
We have 217 signatures. Adelita Grijalva from Arizona won her race about 2 weeks ago. Right. 70 to 30%, overwhelming victory. Mm-hmm. Everyone said she would be sworn in on a pro forma session, just like the speaker has done for previous Republicans.
Correct.
But then suddenly they didn't want to have this vote. So they canceled swearing her in.
But my understanding is the House of Representatives is something called a pro forma session. And Democrats say that you will not swear in a Democrat who was elected in an Arizona special election because you do not want her critical vote on the Epstein discharge position. If she voted for it, then the discharge position would come up on the Epstein files. There she is there speaking. Why won't you swear her in?
Yeah. I mean, again, they're becoming experts at distraction and red herrings. This has absolutely nothing to do about Epstein. This is a scheduling matter. As soon as the Democrats vote to reopen the government, we will get back to the regular order and session of Congress, and that'll be, I'm sure, among our first orders of business is to administer the oath to the newly elected representative. This is just a matter of the schedule. In a pro forma session, no one's there in the chamber. It's literally sometimes 3-4 people. You have a clerk and whomever is serving as the interim speaker. They bang the gavel in, they say the pledge, and they bang the gavel out. That's it. It's just to keep Congress functioning. It's a tradition of the institution. But we'll do it right and do it in the right way as soon as everybody gets back here.
They have canceled all votes in the Congress because they're so afraid of having a vote to release the Epstein files. So I didn't want the survivors coming in and everyone coming in when Adelita Grijalva was not sworn in.
Right.
But we didn't have the 218 votes. So we're going to reschedule it, postpone it, once Adelita Grijalva gets sworn in. But they are literally stopping all of Congress from voting because they're so afraid of her signature that is going to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files.
I understand, and that makes perfect sense until we look back and see that there have been Republicans sworn in during pro forma sessions. So why should it be different for a Democrat?
A great question. There was a unique exception made when the 2 Florida representatives were sworn in earlier this year after winning a special election. And the only reason we did that is because it was previously noticed for that date, and they flew all their families and friends in for the ceremony. So because they were here and the session got canceled, we just went ahead and did it because their families were here. That's the main purpose of it. But,
so if she flies in her family, would you guys do it?
She'll get the full bells and whistles. It hasn't been scheduled because we don't schedule things for pro forma. No, but they're trying to make an issue out of nothing. I've looked forward to welcoming her. She's congratulated for having won her father's seat. He served a long time. She'll have a great career. But, again, these are distractions. We have to get the government open so that we can get all these regular processes working again. That's all this is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The last time we spoke, you didn't mention that you were just one vote away from cracking this thing wide open. But unfortunately, as we've seen, they're shutting down Congress to prevent this from happening. Do you think the speaker is not being forthcoming with the possibility that Donald Trump is responsible for essentially covering for Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? We've seen that he's essentially downgraded her prison. So the DOJ has reportedly released less than 1% of the Epstein-related documents. Why do you think that is?
Well, they're slow walking it. They know that they can't give all of the explosive information. What is in these files? Well, they're FBI notes of the interviews they've had with rich and powerful people, some of whom who may have abused or had raped these underage girls, some of whom who may have known about Epstein engaging in pedophilia and covered up, some of whom may have given Epstein money despite his pedophilia. The FBI investigated all this. There are those witness files there. They don't want those coming out. So what are they doing? They're releasing things that are already public. They're releasing documents that aren't really getting to the heart of the matter. And they're hoping that people like you stop paying attention, that the American people say, just move on. But there's too much anger out there because we all know someone in our community, in our neighborhood, who we've heard of, who was rich and powerful and got away with something that ordinary people can't. Whether it's as small as, hey, they knew the police station and the police chief and they didn't have to pay a ticket, or they didn't have to pay the same fine on taxes.
Right.
And this is now taken to the worst level. This is rich and powerful men who are raping underage girls and are saying, well, I know a politician. I know rich people. You can't get me. And that really offends the American people. That's why this issue has such a sticking point for people.
And do you think that this is kind of the reason why the Congress has been shut down, essentially?
But they're not hiding the ball. Johnson is basically saying, we're not going to swear Adelita Grijalva in. Here's the thing. If Epstein was not the reason that you're shutting down Congress and not having votes, then just swear Adelita Grijalva in. Why are you not swearing her in?
Right. And that leads me to my next question. They clearly have forced his confirmations through, right, recently. Yeah. Why not force her confirmation through as well, so you could get the votes necessary to show the American people that Donald Trump and his community of people that are backing him are not responsible for the Epstein files or the events that took place on Epstein Island? Wouldn't that be, kind of the consensus on his side to kind of get the files released?
Well, I think Johnson himself wants to release the files. I think Epstein, he's afraid of Donald Trump. And Trump has told him, no, we're not going to do it. And this vote would be a slap in Donald Trump's face. I mean, it would be a Republican Congress defying Donald Trump. Has not happened since Donald Trump walked down the escalator. But I've built a bipartisan coalition with Thomas Massey, with Lauren Boebert, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, with Nancy Mace. It's a kind of bipartisan coalition that no one has put together against Trump, taking some of MAGA's base from Donald Trump. And that's why this is such a challenge to Trump. We have become the outsider. We're saying, look, Trump, you're part of the inside corrupt system. You were supposed to tear it down. You were supposed to expose it.
Right.
You're not. You become co-opted by it.
Right. So, he told us, on the campaign trail, there are 3 files we were to expect: the MLK, the JFK, and the Epstein files.
Right.
And since then, he's done everything in the book to try to stonewall progress or try to prevent the files from being released. Based on your knowledge, I'm not saying you should, out, sensitive information, but who do you think he's trying to protect?
I think they're people like the British ambassador who lost his job. Yeah. Right? They're powerful people who have made wealth, who I'm sure are in New York society, or donors, who may be foreign actors, who would be deeply embarrassed. And they somehow have a hold on Trump. That's what the question people are asking. Who are so powerful that they have a hold on the United States government, on the American president, that they're getting him to break his campaign promise? What are these forces? Are they foreign actors? Are they foreign governments? Are they rich donors? How do they have so much power over our government that they are basically getting the president of the United States to call victims of pedophilia hoaxes?
Yes.
What is this power? And that's what's bothering people. That's why this story is not going away. They kind of hope it goes away and dies out, that it comes back with a roar. It raises its ugly head because the American people know that something's rotten.
Right. There's too many questions unanswered. A lot of people in Congress. I've seen a few Congress, a few of them are radicals, but a few of them have said that it is likely that Epstein was an agent for Mossad, collected information on our congressional candidates to blackmail them to maintain some sort of power. That, though it sounds conspiratorial, I would love for you to kind of speak to that.
Well, look, I don't engage in conspiracy theories, and I certainly don't want to engage in any conspiracy theories regarding foreign countries. It's dangerous. I've been very critical of Israel's actions in Gaza.
Right.
But I think we have to be factual on this.
Right.
And I don't want to engage in speculation that may or may not be true. What I've been saying is release the files.
Right.
Put the conspiracy theories to arrest. But I'm not going to engage in conspiracy theories about who may or may not be involved. I will say that there's serious questions of what are these powerful groups? Who are they? Are they foreign actors? Are they U.S. actors? Are they donors? Are they people who are friends of Trump or not? Are they friends of the establishment? Are they Democrats? Are they Republicans? Are they both of them? I mean, we don't know.
So this bill pushes for the release of all the files. How will this be any different than all the previous files that they've released that have either been redacted or been truncated to kind of shield, the real truth behind it?
Well, they haven't released most of it. They haven't released the FBI interviews with the people who committed these crimes, alleged crimes, or who covered up for the crimes. They haven't released the witness memos.
Right.
They haven't released the financial records. So they've released some documents that were already in the public domain, or documents about Epstein's flight logs or Epstein's documents. What we want to know is who all did they talk to? Who were Epstein's friends? Who were part of the system where girls got farmed out to? Who else engaged in underage sex with underage girls?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had another question regarding that. Speaker Johnson delayed swearing in Adelita, which some say was to block this effort. Do you believe that this was intentional?
Absolutely. Otherwise, why not swear her in? I mean, it's like Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the true one. Well, if you don't have a problem with the Epstein files, why not just swear her in?
Right. That is a fair question. The other question I had regarding this particular case is, are you expecting any legal resistance from the DOJ even after you've acquired Adelita's vote to release these files? Do you think they will put up a fight?
Well, first of all, we need the Senate too. And then we need a veto-proof numbers in the House and the Senate in case Trump vetoes it. But I think if the House passes this, it will be such a pressure blow to Donald Trump. MAGA is saying release these files. Your own party in the House is saying it. It's a vote of no confidence in a parliamentary system for your own party to say they don't have confidence in what the Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are doing. That is why they're working night and day to prevent this vote. That's why they've shut down Congress. We're not being able to vote on paying our troops because they don't want to swear in on Adelita Grijalva.
Wow. Speaking, to that topic of paying our troops, I heard recently that there's a possibility that the workers that were furloughed because of the shutdown won't necessarily get back pay. Is that true, or is this kind of speculative on my part?
No, it may be true. I mean, in all other times of shutdowns that I've been part of, and I've been in Congress 9 years,
right.
You have the Congress says we are going to vote to have the back pay. We're going to commit to that back pay. They are not doing this time. Why? Because there's Russell Boyd, who is the head of the OMB, and they are implementing Project 2025, which is they intentionally want to shrink the federal government. They want to fire federal civil servants. They don't care that people are taking care of our parks. They don't care that people are taking care of our airports. They don't care that people are helping give out Social Security checks to everyone, give out Medicare to everyone, making sure that we're taking care of our veterans, making sure that we have public health. They view all of this as work of bureaucracy. I view it as work of public service.
Absolutely.
They don't think that something has value unless you're going and making tons of money off it.
Right.
I think that someone who serves in our nation's uniform has more value than the tech billionaires in my district because they're fighting for the freedom of this country. It's a fundamental difference of view. I believe public service matters. They don't. And that's why Voight is basically taking a sledgehammer to the federal government.
Right. So do you think the disguise is kind of off now because Donald Trump has incessantly, pleaded multiple times that he has nothing to do with Project 2025. He has no idea the contents of the manifesto that they created for Project 2025. But now we're seeing that not only is he meeting with Russ Vought, who is a key architect of Project 2025, but they're actually implementing it. And I believe they're about 50% done with implementing the entire strategy for Project 2025.
I don't know if Donald Trump knows the details. I'm sure he probably hasn't read it, but that doesn't really matter. All he's done is he's on his own kick to have retribution against his enemies,
right,
and to do the few things that he wants to do. But otherwise, he's handed the keys to Stephen Miller on immigration policy and Russell Boyd on demolishing the federal government and federal agencies. And they're running the government.
You know, a lot of people do believe Stephen Miller is running the government. I think I tweeted that recently, and Gavin Newsom's office retweeted it. You know, I was like, who's running the government?
Yeah.
And they were being witty. They said Stephen Miller. And the internet went up in roars because a lot of people agree with that notion.
Well, he's certainly running the draconian immigration policy in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they voted for Donald Trump because we wanted secure borders on immigration. They didn't vote for ICE agents to parade 3-4-year-olds in the streets half naked.
Yeah.
They didn't vote to take children away from their moms in the middle of the night. They didn't vote for ICE to be harassing American citizens born in America, to be harassing them. They didn't vote for ICE agents to be masked. They didn't vote for ICE to act with impunity without body cameras when police agents and FBI agents need body cameras. I'm coming out with a bill to say that there have to be some minimum standards for how ICE interacts to respect our constitutional rights.
Could you speak to that bill a little bit more?
Well, the bill is going to require some very common sense things. They need to have body cameras, just like police officers. They can't be masked. They need to personally identify themselves, who they are, just like police officers have to do that.
Right.
They need to make sure that they have de-escalation training.
Right.
So you're not getting into an escalatory situation with young kids.
Right.
These are basic standards of conduct. That means that law enforcement has to respect constitutional rights. And we have that standard of conduct for police. We have that standard of conduct for FBI agents. Why shouldn't we have that standard of conduct for ICE agents?
You know, that's very fair. Do you have any co-sponsors for this bill, or?
Well, we're going to be putting out this resolution. I'm breaking some news here. And then I hope we're going to get the vast majority of Democrats and some of the civil libertarians on the Republican side.
I think that's going to be very popular, especially amongst the Democratic base. A lot of people are up in roars over, you know, not just what he's doing in California, but in particularly what's happening right now in Chicago and all the other states that he's supposedly sending in the National Guards. We've all seen it. I believe the governor of Chicago is putting up a really strong fight against his authoritarian power grabs. What would you say towards that overall topic?
Well, I'm proud of some of our Democratic governors in standing up for the constitutional rights of people. You know, Pritzker is doing that in Chicago. Governor Newsom has did that with LA. Governor Moore is doing that in what would happen in Baltimore. I think that we need to make sure that you cannot have the ICE agents violate people's due process. And a lot of these immigrants are hardworking. They're paying taxes. They're working in farming or in agricultural production. They're working at hotels or restaurants. They're working in construction. And you want our food prices to go up, then start to deport hardworking, tax-paying people in food processing. Absolutely. You want the cost of construction and housing to go up, then deport people who are law-abiding and pay taxes. I don't think that's what the American people want. Right. I think they want a secure border. I think they want to make sure that people are not committing crimes. They want deportation for those who have convicted of violent crimes. But for people who are paying taxes or working hard or contributing to the economy, they want a path to legalization and ultimately a path to citizenship.
And do you see yourself in the future sponsoring a bill that grants some type of amnesty to these people?
Well, I'd say that if you're working hard, if you're paying taxes, then there should be a path to legalization, right, and then a path to citizenship. I don't view that as amnesty. I view that as you are working and paying taxes and contributing to the country, and then you are earning the ability to be legal and the ability to be a citizen.
No, absolutely. You've partnered with Massey and Green, which is unprecedented to say the least. What does the alliance say about the urgency of this particular issue?
Well, my view on how to defeat MAGA is not to just be anti-Trump. We need to partner with part of the MAGA base that is so angry at institutions, that's so frustrated with the decline of the American dream, that is so angry at the corruption of government, and that they want government back to the people. And I have done this. I've done this with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie when it comes to the release of the Epstein files. I've done this with Don Bacon when it comes to stopping the tariff on coffee and say, don't tax our coffee.
Right.
Before the revolution, over the tax on tea. I did this when it comes to a coalition on criticizing the war crimes in Gaza. So, we need to figure out how we can build broad coalitions that put the Democratic Party on the side of the people and take on the establishment interests.
Absolutely. Regarding the incident in Gaza, you've recently, spoken out against the detainees of the flotilla.
Yeah.
What's the development there? Are you seeing any changes?
Well, I got a call from David Adler's sister. She said, Ro, I've called everyone. I can't get a hold of anyone in the government. My senators, my embassy, the U.S. government. And this guy was from California, wasn't even my constituent. I said, she was so emotional. Saturday night, I get the call. I said, this is ridiculous. He's a U.S. citizen. He's being detained. There are days and he has not been able to talk to an attorney. He's not been able to talk to his family. What's the point of being in government if you're not going to help a U.S. citizen from your own state? So I am so proud of my colleagues. We mobilized, and by Monday morning, we had a letter with Nancy Pelosi and 24 California Democrats to Secretary Rubio, to Ambassador of Israel, saying, release them, treat them fairly. They released them to Jordan. He's back on a plane tonight to the United States. I talked to his family, and they're very appreciative of the work of our delegation. And we sent a clear message to the Israeli government. Don't mess with American citizens.
Very good. What was the basis for the arrest? Simply just going into Israel in a flotilla?
There's a debate. I mean, he was in international waters. I don't believe he crossed into Israel's waters. Israel believes that he crossed into them and violated their embargo. Regardless of the legal aspect, and I have a disagreement, obviously, with Israel about whether there was a violation or not, you still have to let someone talk to their attorney. You still have to let them talk to their families. You still have to make sure that they're returned to the United States.
Right. There are procedural laws and due process that one would expect with any government.
They were trying to get aid into Gaza. They weren't trying to do some criminal act.
So, some commentators have, and I've seen this, have labeled you a Hamas supporter for your advocate to get the release of David Adler.
The release of American citizens? They're calling American citizens Hamas supporters? I mean, come on. I condemned the brutal terrorist attacks of Hamas on October 7th. I talked about Israel's right to get those terrorists. I have said that we need a Palestine free of Hamas. I've said that Israel has the right to exist as a secure, democratic Jewish state. But you cannot take American citizens and violate their due process and think that there's impunity. You can't take American weapons and kill people in Gaza and think there's impunity. That's why I've supported the Stop the Bombs Act by Delia Ramirez. No military weapons to Israel while they're killing civilians. That's why I have voted against the $14 billion last year that went to Netanyahu. I was one of the very few, 37 Democrats stood up against that. I got attacked by a lot of people for voting my conscience. But that was a vote that was the right vote in terms of humanity.
No, absolutely. And do you believe Israel crossed the line when they arrested David Adler?
Well, they should have returned him if they captured him. I think he should have been allowed to get the aid in. But if they captured him, they should have then sent him back to the United States with due process and explained. Where I think they crossed the line is by detaining him without letting him speak to his family, without giving him access to a lawyer, where no one knew what was happening to him for days.
So it begs the question: if they're doing this to U.S. citizens, we obviously have a more powerful advocate to get our citizens released.
Right.
What do you think is actually happening in Gaza today with Israel? Do you think
It's horrific. I mean, the UN had a report, life expectancy 40 years, down from 75 years.
wow?
Thousands of women and children killed, homes destroyed, millions facing famine and food insecurity, no food, no medicine. I talked to some doctors who were in Gaza who were pleading that children should be allowed to go to East Jerusalem to be treated, because if they stay in Gaza, they're going to die either of the wounds of war or of diabetes or cancer or the things that they need treatment for, because they don't have the medical equipment and supplies in Gaza to do it. It is a humanitarian catastrophe. It's a blot on the conscience of humanity.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people say that, you know, October 7th was horrific, and it was horrific, genuinely horrific. But I think what they're failing to admit that this didn't really start on October 7th. There's decades of precedent to support the Palestinian cause, to essentially be freedom fighters, or to essentially create some kind of resistance. Israel is a strong military, and with our backing and our tax dollars, they have amassed immense power in the Middle East. What do you say towards our aid propping up a foreign government that, according to a lot of people, have committed a lot of atrocities in this generation?
Well, first, there's absolutely no justification or excusing what Hamas did. I just want to be absolutely unequivocal. They committed a terrorist attack on October 7th that absolutely has zero justification. The way to articulate a vision for your rights, your people, is the way Gandhi did. My grandfather spent 4 years in jail alongside Gandhi, fighting for India's independence through peaceful nonviolence, the way Mandela did in South Africa, the way Martin Luther King and John Lewis did. I have zero sympathy, toleration for Hamas, and they need to be removed from Palestine through the peaceful process of diplomacy, and have independent Palestine recognized as a state with elections. But I also believe that we have given lip service to the Palestinian cause for decades. We say that we recognize a Palestinian state and two-state solution. But then when I introduce a letter to say, let's follow France, let's all follow Britain, let's follow Canada, and 150 nations to recognize a Palestinian state, I got 47 people who did that. Where's everyone else who's for a two-state solution? Until we actually have a two-state solution, until we actually have Palestinian elections where the Palestinians have a say in their own national identity, we are not going to have security and lasting peace in that region.
So do you think Netanyahu would accept a two-state solution, or?
No, he has no interest in it. Neither does Ben-Gvir or Smotrich. But this is why it's not just for Netanyahu. It's the United States needs to have the clarity that that is what the expectations are of the international community. And then we need to work through aspiration and through pressure to effectuate that result.
In the past, you have voiced your concerns in conditioning aid to Israel. Would you say this falls under that framework in conditioning?
Well, I've always been for conditioning aid. Right now, I'm for no military sales to Israel while this war is ongoing. Afterwards, we can look at the resumption of aid, provided that they are making concrete steps in the progress of a recognition of a Palestinian state and a two-state solution. And if they're in the tradition of Barak and Rabin and Perez and people who wanted peace, then we should encourage that. But if they are in the tradition of Netanyahu and those who think that there's a military solution to the annexation of the West Bank and the displacement of the Palestinians from Gaza, we can't be supporting that with military weapons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a lot of people would agree to this, particularly on the MAGA side. I do believe Donald Trump has lost a pretty big faction of his supporters.
Yeah.
Whether or not they want to admit this, I think in a generation or two, maybe less, Israel will lose a lot of support in this country. What would you say to this?
Well, look, I believe that they already have lost a lot of support in the way they have conducted this war in Gaza. And I am one of the few politicians on the Democratic side who have been willing to support unequivocally no military sales to Netanyahu during this war. I've been one of the few who voted against the $14 billion. I led for a Palestinian recognition, Palestinian state recognition. I have supported the UN findings about what's going on in Gaza. So APEC Tracker does this report of sort of prominent politicians, and AOC and I are the only ones in green, and all the other sort of prominent Democrats are all in red, right, with funded by special interests.
So do you think a lot of them are afraid to speak out, not just for the backlash that would happen, but a lot of their funding, their campaign funds would disappear? Do you believe that?
It's because of the campaign funds. It's because of the beholdenness to these groups. But I think they're totally out of touch with the base. I think they're totally out of touch with where the American people are and where the Democratic primary voters are.
Definitely. So we do have just a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Do you support a Palestinian statehood?
I do. I led the whole letter for that, for calling for the recognition of a Palestinian state with elections so the Palestinians get to decide, not that Tony Blair and Donald Trump are going to rule over Palestine, that they need to have a say, and that we could work with the Arab League to see a Palestinian state that recognizes Israel and provide that Israel needs to be secure as a Jewish democratic state. That is the solution in the Middle East.
So you'd oppose a Trump Tower on the Gaza Strip?
Of course.
You did see the mock-ups that they did. I believe it was 7 to 8 months ago. There's this huge uproar on social media. Donald Trump, he said that he was going to claim a portion of the Gaza Strip for himself. He must have been jesting, but sometimes he makes jokes and they eventually become policy. Yeah,
and the jokes can strike people who have been on the brunt, who face the brunt of colonialism, as deeply insensitive.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe this is it for our interview. It was great to have you on again. This is our first time in person, but this was great.
Thank you. I appreciate your voice. I appreciate the clarity of your thinking and the independence. People want a new generation. They want a different kind of Democratic Party. They want a different kind of politics, and you're part of that.
I appreciate that. Great words coming from you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.